Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ron, and today we're going to be doing another tier list for Deep Rock Galactic. It's been a really long time since we did a tier list for Deep Rock, and this is going to be an updated list for the Mutators of Deep Rock. So these are the negative effects that you can get on various missions, and we're going to be ranking them as to how bad they are. The worse they are, the higher up they'll be. The less bad that they are, the lower they will be. These give you bonus experience once you complete the mission. These range anywhere from 15% bonus XP all the way up to 30% bonus XP, and these also are added together if you do have multiple of these, since you can have 2 per mission. So let's go through these. The reason why I'm updating this list is that 2 of these were not included on the previous list, and we did make that list about a year ago, so some of my opinions have changed on some of them. So let's start at the beginning with Cave Leech Cluster. This one increases the spawn chance of cave leeches. Now, this one honestly isn't that bad, simply because you know what to expect ahead of time, and you can take heightened senses before the mission, so that leeches aren't surprising you as much. There can still be areas where leeches can grab you, especially if you end up falling down a hole and there's multiple leeches down there, or something awful happens to you. But for the most part, Cave Leech Cluster is not that bad. Certain overclocks also make this one particularly easy to deal with. Anything that increases AoE of weapons, so if you have increased AoE with the autocannon for gunner, if you have bullet hell or magic bullets, since you already know that there is a higher chance of cave leeches, running a scout with flare guns and just being really safe also really helps. As well as sometimes this one can feel kind of buggy, because sometimes you'll get this and you only get 2 or 3 leeches in the entire mission, and that's it, which you would probably get normally. So if anything, then everybody's running heightened senses and probably won't get grabbed by those leeches. Cave Leech Cluster I'm going to put into D tier. It's probably one of the easier mutators to deal with. Our second one is Exploder Infestation. This one makes it so exploders are more likely to spawn. This does not affect detonators though. I have gotten that question asked quite a few times, if you have a higher chance of getting detonators or Crassus detonators. No, Crassus detonators do spawn upon the mission rendering, or I guess the map rendering. So if there is a Crassus detonator there, you'll know it. It will just always be there, but it doesn't affect the spawns of regular detonators either, only exploders. This one can be potentially rough, because exploders can down you, at least on Hazard 5, if they blow up directly on top of you, unless you're a gunner and you have full health. You can also use the exploders as wave clear. They do that pretty well. So if you happen to get a swarm of grunts, and then you also get a swarm of the exploders, you can potentially just use the exploders to clear up all the grunts, which is pretty nice. As well as certain weapons do make this easier. The cryo cannon and the sludge pump make this really easy, because at any time the exploders are frozen, they won't explode, and anytime that they are hit with the goo and die from it, then they will just be eaten away and they don't exist anymore then. Put it higher up in D tier than the Cave Leech Cluster though, since cave leeches, if you take heightened senses, then you don't really have to worry about them. Exploder Infestation can still potentially sneak up on you and kill you, but it's less likely. As well as if you go to like the radioactive zone, the radioactive exploders are a little bit worse, simply because once they start getting aggroed, then they run really fast and can potentially get up to you and be a little bit more annoying. Alright, next up we have Haunted Cave. Haunted Cave spawns a ghost bulk detonator that follows you around for the entire map and is just generally annoying. You can't kill it, you can ping it so that people know where it is, and you can also have people kite around it, which is usually one of the easier ways to deal with it. It is still affected by slows, so IFG grenades from the scout can work really well, the sludge pump can slow it down, and a few other overclocks like turret EM discharge can slow it down. But all of that does drain resources, which is kind of annoying. Usually the easiest way to deal with the Haunted Cave is just having the scout kite it away from the team as the team goes and does the objective, and then the scout catches up to them. And then if it shows up again, have the scout wander off once again, having it follow them, and so on and so forth. It just slows down the mission. It can be a real pain, especially if you like running through missions fast. If you like doing speed runs, then Haunted Cave is not one that you really want to see on your list. On the upside though, you cannot have Haunted Cave on salvage missions or on escort duties, so that's good. I imagine it makes the most sense for those because they are hold the point areas, and you really couldn't do that if you have a ghost detonator just running around messing up the whole team and making you even more disorganized. I don't know. Haunted Cave is honestly not that bad to do, but it is extremely annoying. So for that, I think I'm going to move this one up to A tier, because even if the team is really coordinated and can do the mission pretty effectively on any difficulty, it can still be really annoying, especially if the ghost is just blocking ways. If it's blocking the way to the escape pod, it can be really bad. If it's blocking any of your major objectives, it can make it so you don't want to do extra objectives like doing the events and stuff, which can just be annoying as well because you never know when this thing might show up and just mess up your day. So I think I'm going to put it into A tier just because of how annoying it is. Up next, we got lethal enemies. Lethal enemies makes it so all melee enemies deal double damage to you, which is really bad. Now, this doesn't include certain attacks. So any AoE attack, like the Oppressor Slam or the Bulk Detonator Explosion, those do not count as melee hits. They count as something else. Same goes with any projectile-based attack. So that could be any of the Mactera that spit at you, or acid spitters, web spitters, things like that. None of their attacks will be doubled. However, they're still usually dangerous, and you want to take those things out pretty quick because acid spitters are never good, Tri-Jaws are never good. And this does make it so things like slashers and regular grunts are much scarier, as well as swarmers are much scarier than they already are. This one can be really rough. You can get swarmed very easily and die really quick. And I'm just going to put this one up into S tier, because there has been missions where you just have like 2 or 3 slashers just run right to you and kill you pretty much instantly. Next, we got low oxygen. And low oxygen is very similar to like Haunted Cave, where it's very annoying. So what low oxygen does is it gives you an air tank on the side of your character. Once you are away from an air source, then you will start dropping this tank slowly. If you hit critical, then this will start taking your health until you are down. Once you get picked up, you do have some of your oxygen back, but you don't fully refill the bar. To get more oxygen back, you have to get to points that give you oxygen. This could be Molly, this could be deposit sites, this could be the drop pod, or it could be resupplies. This one really relies more on teamwork than anything, and if your team can stay together for the most part, then this mission is not really that difficult. The real difficult part is usually when the drop pod comes and when you have to get back and you're trying to run through a very windy cave or a very high up cave, and you really need to stop at either previous called resupplies or keep up with Molly, get to the drop pod really fast. It just becomes really difficult to do that, and low oxygen can really make missions drag out. It's especially bad on like refinery missions where you have to go outside of the area to then build the pipelines and everything, and well, find where the pipelines are. You just constantly have to keep coming back, and it makes the mission go pretty much twice as long as it would need to. On certain other missions, it's not so bad. Like on mining missions, you can do it about the same speed. Same goes for like egg hunts. Sometimes it can just be really rough. So I think I'm going to put low oxygen into A tier. I'm going to put it lower than the Haunted Cave, because Haunted Cave is always annoying. Low oxygen really depends on how annoying it's going to be, simply based on the cave layout and where the drop pod spawns. Up next, we got the Mactera Plague. And Mactera Plague makes it so that the bulk of enemies that spawn are Macteras. So this can be spawns, good bombers, Tri-Jaws, brundleflies, grabbers. This one can be annoying, can be bad. It depends on what class you're running and what loadout you're running. If you're running Driller, you're probably going to struggle with it unless you have certain overclocks or you're running specific builds to give you extra reach, but you do know ahead of time that it is going to be Mactera. Grabbers can be pretty bad. Tri-Jaws can give you a lot of trouble on any difficulty. Goo Bombers are just generally annoying. And if you build for it, it's not so bad, but it can still be rather annoying because Mactera are generally more annoying to fight than things like the Grunts are. I think I'm going to put Mactera Plague on low A tier. Personally, I don't really like seeing the Mactera Plague. Next, we got Parasites. Parasites means that all the bugs are infected with parasites, and when the larger bugs like Praetorians or Grunts or anything that's a medium-sized or a big-size enemy dies, they will spawn the carnivorous larvae that kind of wriggle around and try to jump at you and hit you. Now, Parasites really aren't that big of a deal on really any difficulty. They're more of an annoyance than anything. They can take a little bit of extra ammo to get rid of. That depends though, because if you kill something with like the flamethrower and there's still leftover flames, it'll probably die from that. So there are workarounds for this, as well as it's pretty easy to kill the actual parasites without even using bullets. You can just hit them with your pickaxe, or if you're running thorns, you can just ignore them and let them hit you. As well as the parasites just don't live that long outside of their host in the first place. So Parasites I would put down into D tier. I think I'd put it actually below Cave Leech Cluster, because at least with that one, you know, you might take Heightened Senses, so it might take up a perk slot. With Parasites, you really don't have to change your build all that much. Regenerative Bugs gives all the bugs healing so long as they're not getting damaged. So if they don't take damage for 3 seconds, then they will start healing their health. 5% of their maximum health regens every second. This doesn't work on every enemy though. It doesn't affect Dreadnoughts, Bulk Detonators, the Ebonite mutation. It doesn't affect the Nexuses either. All of those don't get regenerative bugs. Steve does get regenerative bugs though, and this one's really great if you do like taking Beastmaster, because if you get a guard Steve's pretty much going to be immortal and will tank all the way through the entire mission. This one also really favors any sort of damage over time effects. So that might be electricity, that could be poison from neurotoxin, it could be flames. This one can be a little bit annoying, at least for larger enemies like oppressors. So I'm probably going to put this one into C tier. I think it's a little bit worse than these ones, but it's still not terrible or anything to deal with. Next up, we got shield disruption. This makes it so your shields are permanently disabled, but this does come at some compensation. You take less damage from environmental hazards, and red sugar is also more effective at healing you than it normally would be. You can still use the gunner's shield generator to put up a shield, and enemies still won't walk inside of it, even though you don't get a shield. This one is usually one of the more difficult ones because a shield is really nice for at least padding some of the damage, especially against smaller enemies like swarmers in particular. If you don't have that, it can be really annoying for them just hitting you, even if you do have thorns and you're killing them that way. As well as every time you take a hit, it takes your health. So you are just using up more and more resources by getting red sugar, by calling in more resupplies. Unless you want to get to like critical health and you get that little bit of health regen back, but that's pretty dangerous to be at that low amount of health anyway, because on the higher difficulties, one thing will probably just one-shot you then. This one also makes it so certain equipment doesn't really work, like taking Shield Link as an active skill doesn't work at all in Shield Disruption. Same goes with if you want to use Shield Battery Booster for the Drac, you're not getting any benefit with it. So Shield Disruptor is just a pain, and I would put it up into S tier. Not sure if it's necessarily worse or better than lethal enemies. I've had both these in combination. That's a really scary cave to go through. Then up next we have Lethal Threat. Lethal Threat makes it so enemies have a chance of spawning as the lethal versions of themselves, which means that they will have more health, they'll do more damage, they usually move around more, and I think they're more resistant to stuns, but I'm not entirely sure about that. You can have quite a few different elite enemies. Some of them are pretty bad, others are pretty manageable, like you could have an elite guard, which is just really tanky and kind of annoying. Those ones aren't that bad. You can have an elite slasher that deals really high damage to you and is pretty scary. Same with a Trijaw. You can have an elite bulk detonator, which is obviously pretty scary. You can also have things like elite Praetorians. Elite grabbers are very scary as they can just come out of nowhere, grab you, and then fly half the map away. This one can be really bad too. It depends on what lethal enemies you're getting. If you're getting some of the more manageable ones, Praetorians, guards, maybe an oppressor, or sometimes menaces aren't that bad. It really depends there. Then the hazard isn't too bad, but if you're getting the really annoying ones, if you're getting slashers, if you're getting bulk detonators, if you're potentially getting menaces, grabbers, they can all be really bad and make a mission extremely difficult for you. So I would put this one also up into S tier. Again, I don't know where I'd put these three in comparison to one another. They can all be pretty rough. And then our last mutator is Swarmageddon. This makes it so Glyphid Swarmers are more likely to show up throughout missions. And this one depends on what character you're playing and what equipment you have as to how difficult Swarmageddon is going to be. If you're playing like a high damage scout build with like the M1000 and a shotgun or something, you're probably going to have a rough time. But then if you're running like the bouncy rounds on the Drac, or you're running the aggressive venting on the Drac, it's going to be a cakewalk for you. Same type of thing can go with the other classes as well. Although Gunner's not going to have that much of an issue if you're running like the autocannon or the Hurricane, or bullet hell on the minigun. Driller isn't going to have a problem pretty much at all because all of their weapons are really great at AoE damage. Engineer shouldn't have too much trouble because their turrets can clear up all the little bugs. So this one depends. I think this one's okay, and I don't really mind seeing it that much. I think I'm going to put this one into B tier. Yeah, if you build for it, it's not so bad. If you don't build for it, it can be a bit annoying. So I think this is where I'd put all of the warnings, all of the mutators in Deep Rock as of right now. Tell me your thoughts down below on each of these mutators. Which ones you really like, which ones you dislike the most. And I kind of hope this helped you out or entertained you in some way. Thanks so much for watching this. I really do appreciate it. Special thanks to the supporters of this channel. These are my members over here on YouTube and my patrons over on Patreon. They get early access to videos like this. And if you'd like to be a part of it, you can. There are links down in the description. Thanks everybody who does that. It really helps out the channel. You guys take care. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.